Welcome to day 2. So it's been a long day. I had a lot of trouble staying awake, and I was playing a really cool mobile game that I stumbled across. And what's really cool about this mobile game is it's pretty silly. You just move a ball around a screen, and it paints the pathways. Except it takes you 2 seconds to finish every level, and then it forces you to watch a 5-second ad. And then in between every game, an ad pops up. So this game is actually more ad than game. So needless to say, I uninstalled it. But welcome back to day 2. We're going to read another one of my favorite chapters. So I'm going to read chapter 29 now, and just a little word of warning: there is some coarse language in this particular chapter, which I will attempt to bleep out. "We gathered to honour the passing of our great chief Modol," said Hemus. A small funeral was taking place for the late chief. Many people had gathered to see his body be burned by the river. Hemus was short and stout. His belly was perfectly round like a ball, but his shoulders and arms were strong, thick trunks. He wore a mask of the old world and the hide of a bear over his shoulders and around his crotch. His belly and legs from the knee down were exposed. The head of the bear sat comfortably over his left shoulder. "He will be remembered for his ability to keep us safe in these dark times. Fending off attacks from dark warriors will continue to be a challenge for us as we compete for territory. May his spirit follow us for the rest of our days." Hemus pulled a tattered mask off his belt and walked over to the wood pile Modal was laid atop. He tucked it between his former chief's fingers and said his personal goodbyes, like an old friend. He then stood aside and gave everyone else a chance to come up themselves and see him off. One by one, masked hunters and civilians alike came to touch his chest and speak their respects. Children would lay flowers by the base of the wood pile. Close friends would leave him trinkets that represented their past together. Some would lay a brick from his old home in the village. Others jewelry, knives, and even an animal bone. When everyone was finished, Hemus stood before Modal once more and began to rub his hands together. After a brief moment, his palms ignited, coming to life with vibrant fire. Soon both his hands were completely engulfed with flames, but it caused him no pain and didn't even blacken his fingers. He misplaced his hand on the wood, causing it to catch and burn away. Everyone watched as the beloved leader burned to nothing with all his gifts. Hemus couldn't wait a moment longer and came before the onlookers once more to speak his mind. "I could not keep his death a secret, my friends. Our chief was killed by a dark, one who claims to believe in the old ways of our once glorious village. My friends, the Darks may have been our name once when we lived between walls and held grand celebrations every night. We cannot live for those days any longer. Our God the Whole has abandoned us. He does not favour our people as he will the other tribes. For too long now we bear no name, no identity." Hemus with both hands clutched the back of his mask, looking for a hole back there. When he found it, he ripped it bigger and bigger until the back of his head was exposed. And then he ripped it further until the mask was completely removed from his head. The sound of gasps filled the crowd. A well-respected member of the clan and close friend of the chief who had kept them safe had just given himself the greatest dishonour in the eyes of their god. "No more will I claim to represent the Dark Village and wear the symbol of the whole god. Hemus threw both halves of the mask to the ground and shot them with a burst of flame, engulfing it immediately. "I will hunt every day of my life. Until I die, I will. Nobody will tell me no," Hemus shouted. The onlookers were nervous. Fear had held them in place. The only sound present was the roaring flame, casting a shadow over Hemus. Suddenly, a black and blue mask arced across the crowd, landing on top of Hemus and catching fire itself. Bennett, a humble hunter who took many orphans after the village destruction, stepped forwards, face as bare and clean as Hemus's. "There is no God," he shouted. "I will choose my own fate and serve nobody." Silence fell once more. Everyone present looked at one another, confused. One more hunter stepped forwards, removing his mask and throwing it into the fire. Then another joined in, and soon every hunter was ripping off their mask and creating an orchestra of cheers together. "Our righties are fury!" Hemus yelled. All together, everyone in the clan threw their arms in the air, reciting Hemus's words in unison, drawing their weapons and shaking them wildly. The smokestacks from the fire could be seen all across the plains. Thick, black clouds of smoke rose from the camp and blanketed the horizon. It grabbed the attention of a hall hunter, Markowski, who was out hunting in the plains with 3 other hunters and a couple of juniors. The leader Torb was very strict about patrols if he was going to re-establish the village. He needed to find a place free of Priach's influence. But Markowski, and whoever else was sent out, always returned with the same answer, that it was a bad place. "The smoke," said Markowski, turning his head to one of the nearby hunters. "Could be anything," one of them responded. The young hunters were on their knees inspecting a scarabæ corpse. The beast was green with yellow stripes across its razor-sharp fur. They were highly uncommon as they lived mostly in the caves of the Canyonland and the surrounding hills. Their close relatives, the woodland bears, were a more common find as they wandered the forests in the south, but were much smaller and didn't have nearly as sharp a hide. Markowski stood over the hunters, so tall and wide that he cast a shadow over all of them, but not so big that the entire bear was obscured. His armor was heavy and layered across his arms, chest, and legs. On his back were 2 weapons, a great Clayton steel hammer and an axe. He took the axe off his back and swung it downwards in front of him. All of his underlings dispersed in fear. The axe cut straight through the creature, decapitating it and revealing its gooey insides. "It's dead. Leave it so we can go to the fire," he ordered. All of the hunters nervously nodded and took to their heels. Markowski put the axe back on his back, its Clayton steel reflecting in the golden light. Its axe blade was wide, thick, and mirrored on both sides of the metal handle, making it extraordinarily heavy and not at all easy to wield. Its past owners only ever used it for woodcutting, but when Markowski got his hands on it, he found that an insult to use its beautiful steel on anything that wasn't people. They walked the whole way over, despite everyone begging Markowski not to. The walk was so long that it would be dark before they got back to the hall camp. He did not let any of them leave. Every man had to make the hike, and every man would do as he instructed. The hunters had a fear of Markowski, but he was in high favor with leader Torb, being close friends since the days of the village, starting the whole tribe together. Markowski was to be the successor. It was inevitable. Torb would trust the job to no other man. When they arrived, the fire was a pile of ash. The old chief's body was completely burned away. All that remained was a plate of steel, moulded into the shape of a scarabae's head. Hemus and the entire crew were still present. They were all eating, laughing, and enjoying one another's company. Bennett was the first to spot the Halls enter the area, leaning close to Hemus, who had his back turned, and Bennett said, "Markuski is here." Hemus spun around in shock. The last thing he had expected was to see such an old face. "Markuski," said Hemus. Hemus stood up and walked over to meet the Halls. "Markuski," he called out. "Come to my wife again, have ye?" Nearby Furies giggled. "I'm ashamed to share the same continent as your disgusting wife," said Markowski. "Aye, I would be too if she kicked my arse that bad," Hemus laughed. Markowski gave the hint of a smile. His troop all kept their distance, hands on weapons. Hemus counted the number of people Markowski brought with him, and the weapons they carried. "The fire?" asked Markowski. "Formidable," said Hemus. "My respects. He was a good fighter." Hemus shook his head. "No, he was a good man." "Who got him?" "Annabelle," said Hemus. Markowski frowned. "She would never leave the Lord's side. It doesn't make sense unless he attacked Khan." "Lord Khan died of malady," said Hemus. Markowski looked back to his allies. They were nervous, but ready for what was coming. "Wear your masks." "Don't wear them no more," said Bennett. "The men are talking, nurse," Markowski snapped. Hemus stepped forwards. "Bennett is a proud member of the Furies, of Moldol's Furies. If he were here, well, the old man is dead." Markowski's troop all gripped their steel tightly. "Where are your masks?" he asked again. Hemus paused. He pushed on the bottom of his lip with his tongue. "We do not honor Hall God as you or the Darks do." "Savages!" Markowski screamed. "Do you not come from the same dark village as we all did? Village is gone. Leave now, or this will become your ceremony as well," said Hemus. The men all locked up in a staring contest. Those not involved in it started taking the children away. "Denham," Bennett called out. "Take them as far as you can." Cool, thanks for watching. Be sure to come back tomorrow to listen to another exciting chapter of my story. Also feel free to message the page if you would like to get your hands on a copy yourself so you can read the entire book. Don't forget, we're doing something very special on the 7th day as well. And if you have any questions about the story, where it's going, any of the characters, feel free again to message the page. I'm pretty quick to respond normally. Thanks.